Vinny, it is an honor. Thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah, Ellie, it's nice to be here. My pleasure.
I've heard you speak several times over the years. At one point, several years ago, I got hooked on NDEs, and I'm still a little obsessed. And your story is epic. It really is. It's beautiful for so many reasons. And um, my ex-husband's mom, she actually is my best friend, and she sends me podcasts every now and then. She recently sent me yours, and she was just like, "This story is incredible." So she says hi. It's funny, the ones that she'll send me, I will already have those people on my mind to reach out to.
hmm
As soon as she sends it, it's like my confirmation.
I saw you had Betty on here, and Betty's
Yes,
amazing.
she
So
is
anywhere
incredible.
Betty goes, I'm good to go.
Awesome. I like that. That's a good rule. Yeah,
Yeah,
she's incredible.
she's
Yeah.
a great force of light in this world.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
She knows what she's doing and she's hilarious. And yeah, I love her energy. She's phenomenal. So, yeah. There definitely are a couple of things that I've heard you speak on that I definitely want to dive into with you. But first, I would love for you to talk about your NDE. I don't know if it's best for you to take us back to, was it 2003?
Yeah, 2003.
2003 or
Keeps
before, wherever it makes the most sense for you. I know you've given this spiel a million times.
Yeah. Well, my experience it does start back in 2003. I was an amateur bodybuilder. I was a filmmaker. I was a slash TV producer, and a construction guy. So I was wearing a lot of hats for only being 25 years old.
Wow.
I felt I was really successful in doing all of those things. My life wasn't missing anything really. I felt that I had everything I wanted. But one thing I was trying to do was repair my relationship with God. I had stepped away from God for about 5 years. I grew up religious. And I was in the process of, stepping back and figuring out what that looked like, what it was going to be like. And that's when I had my experience. The way my experience starts is it starts with a supplement. I took a supplement I bought from Thailand. And, I had lived in Thailand previously, so I trusted stuff from there. And I took my regular dose of this weightlifting supplement, me and a buddy of mine, we both took it. Only to find out later that the stuff we got from Thailand was 20 times stronger than the American stuff. So right away, our bodies started to reject it. But being this invincible 25-year-old, I decided, hey, let's go to Dairy Queen and get something to eat, and that's going to make everything better. So we hopped in the car and we barely made it into the parking lot at Dairy Queen, even to the point where I had to put the car in shift for my buddy who was driving. He was not even in a clear enough mind to put it into to park.
Wow.
And so I put it in park. I stumbled out of the vehicle. I stumbled into the restaurant. I went directly to the restroom and locked the door because it was a single use bathroom. And right away, the room felt like it was spinning on me. And next thing I know, I'm looking down and I'm looking at a dead body. And I don't think it's me because me is up here. Me is up in the upper side of the room. And so I'm thinking, this is odd. This is different. But I'm just observing. But I'm also observing that I see my buddy. He had gone into the restaurant, collapsed on a booth, and I was really worried about him. But your logic is different there in that space. As I was observing him, I noticed right away that all pain had left my body. And when you're a bodybuilder, you're in pain most of the time. Like your muscles, your different muscle groups, your joints, they hurt all the time. And I noticed I was out of pain. And so I was looking down to see where my body is, and I couldn't see anything. All I could see was black, like black space. Then I looked down below me and I could see my buddy. And so I stayed focused on him. And I watched them haul him away in an ambulance. He was fine. They ended up pumping his stomach and getting him taken care of. He was out of the hospital within 24 hours. But with me, with my body, I could see this dead body on the ground in the bathroom, and I could see that nobody saw it there. And I saw a big amount of time. I mean, at least probably an hour
Wow.
before a customer kept trying to open that bathroom door, and he got the manager to open that door to find this body on the ground. So this manager, he calls 911 for the second time that day, and they get a second team out there, a medical team. This team was a three-man team. It was two veterans and a rookie. And this rookie was very heartfelt. It felt as if he had just finished orientation, finished training. He was very new, and they weren't letting him do anything. He was just observing. He was shadowing everyone. And one of his jobs was to babysit this dead body in a bag because they did pronounce the body dead. They attempted resuscitation but didn't have any response.
Wow.
So they bagged the body, they put it in the back of the ambulance, and this rookie just sat there and stared at it. And the whole time I could hear every thought he had. I could hear him saying, why are we not trying this? Why are we not trying that? I just learned about this. Why aren't we trying this? He was berating himself for like 20, 30 minutes in the back of that ambulance while these two veteran medics went around and got paperwork signed by witnesses. Well, they got all done. They left that scene and they were only about a half block away when this rookie, his heart started to glow as if light was coming from him. And out of nowhere, this really, really loud energy came over me, like over where I was, went over me, and it went directly at him and it said, "This one's not dead." And I remember when it happened, I was like, what? Where did that come from? I was like looking both directions. I couldn't see anything but darkness or black. And I'm noticing this rookie, I could tell he heard it or he felt it. Somehow the message was delivered,
Mm.
but he didn't do anything about it. He went back to just, worrying about why aren't we helping this guy? And then that light grew and it got brighter. It went all the way from his waist to above his head. And again, it was coming from him, not from an outside source. And as it got brighter and brighter, I heard it a second time. "This one's not dead." And when he heard it the second time, he instantly like jumped into action. He opened up the body bag. He started feeling around for a pulse. He didn't feel one, but he kept looking. And when he went to the femoral artery on the inside of the leg, he felt something, and it was enough for him to attempt resuscitation. So
Like
he
he
opened
felt
up
like
that
a
bag and,
pulse, or what do you mean by he felt something?
well, I asked him about that. He said he felt a pulse, and I said, like a real pulse. You felt a pulse. And he's like, well, not a pulse.
Or maybe like a twitch or
It was
like,
a twitch, yeah.
okay,
But
okay.
what's weird though is when he felt it, he jumped. Okay.
Hmm.
And when he jumped, I felt me up here watching. I felt as if somebody hooked me to a car battery, or I put a fork in
Wow.
a uh, an outlet, a plug. Like I felt a shock where I was. And to me, that was some kind of sign that we were connected. I
Yeah.
was still pretty ignorant, not knowing that what I was watching was my own body yet.
Wow.
So I watched him go ahead, attempt resuscitation. Nothing happened the first time. Second round of shocks, he got a single heartbeat. And then on the third round of shocks, he got a steady heartbeat.
Wow.
The whole time, though, these veteran medics were just laying into him. They were sitting in the front of the ambulance while he was in the back. And they were just telling him, you're going to get fired. You're not even a real medic yet. You're barely certified. All these things they were going after him, and he didn't listen. He went ahead and did this. He pulled through, and as soon as that heart started, both the veterans shut their mouths, and they instantly went into action. They radioed ahead to a hospital, which miraculously, it was a block away from where the
Wow.
heart started. There was a trauma center, like a level 3 trauma center, 1 block away from where the heart started. So
Wow.
they were able to turn the body in directly to the trauma center right after the heart started. And that's where I started to feel something odd was going on. Because not only did I feel that shock earlier when he was feeling for a pulse, but I was looking and they were transferring the body from the medical gurney in the ambulance over to a medical or ICU bed in at the hospital. And in that transferring, the body went into full seizure.
Mm.
So they strapped it down. They needed to work on this body, so they were going to restrain it. They restrained the legs. I didn't feel anything. They restrained the right arm. I didn't feel anything. But when they restrained the left arm, and I'm left-handed, I felt someone tying me down up where I was watching. And
Wow.
I looked down to see like what's tying my left hand down. I looked down and I was seeing the arm, the left arm of the dead body. And that was when it was like like scary fireworks went off in my head.
And you realized.
And I realized that everything that I'd been witnessing was me. And, when people hear this, they think, how, there's no way. There's no way you could not know it was you. And the way I describe it, it's like pulling up to a stoplight and looking over and seeing your same car and seeing someone wearing your same clothes who looks like you, but you know it's not you because you're in your car. That's what it felt like. I was in my car. I was in my space.
Hmm.
There was no way that could have been me. So going off of that, I now knew what I'd been witnessing for who knows how long, at least an hour, maybe two. Now, from the time they recorded my death, from the time they recorded dead on arrival to the time that they started my heart, they had to record that time as well. It was 47 minutes had passed.
Wow.
So I'm documented at 47 minutes dead, but they know for sure I was dead likely 30 to 60 minutes before they found me
Wow.
because of the body temperature. The hard part is the floor was really cold and it was winter in
Mm.
where I was. So they can't tell exactly how much time because the floor, dropped my body temperature quite
Mhm.
quickly, but they know for sure at least 30 minutes. The most conservative estimate's 30 minutes. The more liberal estimate is excess of an hour.
Wow.
But from one 911 call to the second, so from my buddy's 911 call to my 911 call, it was another almost 45 minutes. So they know for sure it good chunk of time that the heart had stopped, the brain was done working, and in fact for 3 more days the brain was done. The brain didn't come back for 3 days.
Wow.
So even though they got the body back, I was not back in my body yet. I stayed outside of it. And that's when I realized I was going to be given this choice by a guide. I met this man. I thought he was God at first, and then I thought he might be Jesus, and he just kind of laughed at both of those things. He explained that he was going to be my guide, and he was here just to help me. He was here to help me go wherever I wanted to go. And I told him, I want to go wherever this love is coming from. This love I'm feeling from you, I want to go there. And he explained that he could take me there, that that was my home, my original home. So we began this journey, and what a journey it was, because it was, someone asked me, did you travel a distance or did you travel dimensions? And yes to both.
Hmm.
Because it's right here, but it's also in a different space, a different dimension. And to go through those dimensions does feel like traveling distances.
Yeah. And when you see him, are you seeing details? Is it an actual body? Is it?
Oh, he was more real than me.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
very vivid, very clear. Old white male, old Caucasian male. But what's funny is his hair was old. Like he had a white beard, he had white hair down to about his shoulders, but his skin looked like he was in his 20s.
Huh.
So he gave off the energy of senior or accelerated soul,
Mm,
but yet his skin looked like his 20s or 30s.
wow.
And his skin itself was, I mean, I've described this a few times. I describe it in my book. It's it was like looking at sand at sunset. It
Mm,
just glistened like there was little beams of light that would just hit you once in a while coming through his skin. But you could tell he was built of the same light that I was witnessing on that medic. This really strong force of light. And it's what he radiated towards me. And he explained to me he wasn't creating that light, he was channeling it, bringing it from heaven, from my home. And that all of creation is essentially brought to anywhere that it exists from the heavenly realm.
mm,
That source as a name for creation is very important because that's what it is. It's our source. So he began this journey with me to help me go back home, go back to heaven. And me being kind of a smarty pants and someone who thinks they know the answers to questions before they're asked, I told him, I know, it's all about love. I think I learned about love. And he said, love's really important, but it's not everything. There's other aspects of existence that are around love. And he explained that authenticity was the most important thing for me to embrace and understand. And I looked at him and I go, I'm authentic. And he goes, I love you think you're authentic, but let me show you how many different versions of you there are. And so it was like he could climb in my mind and he showed me. He showed me how many different versions of Vinny there are. And I had no idea. There was a lot of versions of Vinny out there. And he showed me that the authentic self would be the commonality between all of those different versions of Vinny.
mm,
And he showed me that I would have to take my light, my personal light, back to an age where I was about 7 years old. And it's at 7 years old, the light that was there, that's the light that was running this adult body. And it was no greater, no less. And that the soul, the little aching soul inside of me, was this 7 year old little boy who was trying to protect himself and trying to be who he thought the world wanted him to be. That's why I did really good in TV and film, not as any kind of actor. I was a producer. I would work, behind the camera. I could become whoever I needed to become for whatever position I was working in a capacity of, whether it was just a production assistant or a second assistant director or just a gaffer, a helper, like a stand-in, anything. And it's like I had this ability, almost like a chameleon, to become who I needed to become
mm,
so that I was not targeted. Because that was the goal. I didn't want to be targeted. Even for praise, I didn't want to be targeted.
mm,
I just didn't want to be on anyone's targets. And he showed me that that's who I really was. And he showed me why I was that way. And he showed me that there was a real love there, that if I would allow that love into that 7 year old self, that I would realize he didn't need to put up any other faces.
mm,
And so I emotionally had to bring myself back to my 7th year of existence on earth. And that's where we began our journey. As an innocent young boy, um, a lot more innocent than I was when I died.
mm,
And so then I told him, I go, okay, now we know, now I know authenticity. Now it's all about love. And he goes, no, not yet. You need to know why you came to Earth School. And that's when I was like, Earth School, why do you keep calling it Earth School? It's not a school, it's a test. And that's why we're here. We're here to be tested, and our our God full of ego is supposed to throw some of us away and keep some of us. And that's when he showed that there's no such thing as this God full of ego who wants to throw away most of us.
Mm.
And that the real God, the one that religion doesn't teach about, the one that is the all encompassing creator, creative force, the birther of the cosmos, that creator wants me to feel love
Mm.
and wants me to feel that I can learn, I can grow in this capacity of living here on earth. And that's what it's all about, is learning. That's it.
Mm.
And just like going to a school, but a school where you pass before you get there, you're just trying to gain what you can out of the class. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So Drake, my guide, his name is Drake. He had given me his name by then. And this was long before there was any famous Drakes out there, so at least that I knew about. Um, so he was, coaching me through this. And then finally he said, now it's about love. And he
Mm.
showed me it truly is about loving everyone because we are all pieces of the creation. For us to not love another is to not love the self.
Mm.
For us to not love another is to not love our creator. And that within all of us, there is great good and great bad. And that we can love the good side, the God side of every being, every part of creation. But that there is a sliver of our creator, even in the inanimate or inornate objects of life, that there is a piece of creator in everything, even this microphone here or the walls, the shutters, the lights, whatever. It's all part of God, all part of creation.
Mm.
And that's where we began our journey. I finally started to get it.
Yeah.
I finally realized that I needed to stop thinking like a human and start thinking like an eternal soul, because that's what I am. And we continued on that journey. And just he blew my mind again and again and again. It was like element after element after element. He was blowing my mind. One of the standout principles that he taught me is that I need to release all prejudice. And I grew up in a biracial family. I have two sisters that are of a different race and that are adopted. And I always felt more in common with them than I did with my blood brother and my blood sister. So I felt like I was one of the least prejudiced people you could find. And that's when Drake said, I love that you think you're not prejudiced, but how do you feel about prejudiced people?
Mm.
And I showed him. I showed him what I thought we should do with prejudiced people. And there were some violent thoughts in there.
Mm.
And I showed him with my thoughts what I believed about prejudiced people. And while I'm just in this mode of expression with him, he does this little cartoon in my head. This little cartoon shows this little effigy of Vinny, a little mini Vinny. And he shows that I think I'm on the non-prejudice side of life, on the unconditional love side. And as I'm sitting there spouting these words and these energies, he lifts it up and he carries it over to the prejudice and puts it down with the prejudice.
Wow.
And that was a big aha for me,
Mm.
to think, to be anti prejudice. I myself was becoming prejudice. And that's a brain buster.
Yeah.
So he showed me that there is a solution to prejudice, and that's just love.
Just love.
And he showed me a close friend of mine who was openly prejudiced about certain things and didn't try to hide it, but he showed me why that person was that way. And he showed me that that person had a long story behind that belief or that view.
Mm.
It just was not assumed on them. They had what they thought was reason. And that if I could come into that person's life, which I later did, and be a force of love, unconditional love, I can help them put down their victimhood
Mm.
and take up the torch of unconditional love for all, including those who they were prejudiced to in previous. So that was very, very eye-opening,
Mm.
life-changing. Drake took me through 10 distinct principles. And by the time we got through the 10th one, I had touched down in a place. My feet had touched, which I had feet. I have an energetic body. We all do. And my feet had touched down in this heavenly realm. And I could feel a love there that I didn't think was possible.
Mm.
I could be the best person in the world for a million years, and I still wouldn't deserve the love that's there.
Wow.
That love that's there, there's truly not human words to share what it is because it's otherworldly.
Mm.
If I could take a blade of grass from heaven to this universe, the entire universe would explode because there's so much love in that single blade of grass.
Mm.
That's the force of love that's there for all of us. And even though heaven is right here, it's also very, very distant.
Mm.
But through all those dimensions, we can still feel heaven's love here. That's how freaking powerful it is.
Yes.
It's multi-dimensional. And I got to touch down and plug in to just grass, but I was freaking out. I had never experienced any kind of love like this. And I felt the grass ask, like, do you want us? And it referred to itself as us because each blade had a consciousness in it.
Mm.
And I said yes. And it felt as if the grass was my charger and I was a dead battery. It's like when we found each other, I found the exact thing I felt I was missing my whole life. I found the very reason why I loved drugs, why I loved adrenaline, why I loved all the highs that the earth could offer me. And now I had a totally different understanding of what I was trying to replace when I was seeking those things out in the world. And I was feeling this outpouring of love. And the only thing I can think of is why me? Why me? Not thank you. That was not even possible for me right there.
Mm.
I just thought, why me? How can I be worth this? And the grass instantly responded, directly communicating with my mind. It said, because you're a part of God. Because you're part of creation. Like us, you're a part of creation. And we love you.
Mm.
And the next thing I can think of is, well, I'm not worthy of that love. And and instantly I could feel from the grass, like, what does worth have to do about love? That was big.
Wow.
And then Drake, he's laughing because I'm freaking out about grass. And he goes, if you think the grass is good, you should see the flowers. And then I lost my mind. I'm like, there's flowers? What? There's flowers? And he took my consciousness. He was so good at this. He was really, really good at being my guide. He took my consciousness and put it on a single flower. I don't know how he did it, but he could do this kind of stuff. He's like a master of this kind of stuff. And he put my consciousness on the petals of a flower as if I was like a bee. And I'm sitting there like dancing around. I'm looking at this liquid lavender light inside each petal. And everywhere that my energy would touch or make contact with the flower would sing. It would
Wow.
actually sing and make music. And not just that, even being near it, I could not just smell it, but taste it.
Wow.
And everything just had such a sweetness there. And when you hear about old stories from the medieval times where they talk about fairies dancing around the plants. That's what I felt like. I felt like I was being a fairy.
Oh, that's
And I
awesome.
just was so excited to be near this flower. And then again, I hear Drake laughing. He never laughed diminishingly. He
Mm,
laughed lovingly and
mhm.
respectively. And I heard his loving, respective laugh. And I looked over and I'm like, oh no, what's next? And he goes, did you see the trees? I was like, there's trees. What? So then I'm experiencing the trees. And while I'm experiencing the trees, I'm seeing just this multi-generational wisdom in the
Mm,
trees and how the trees see themselves as living, moving things, living in an ocean-like substance. Even though they're on land, to them, earth or land is like ocean.
mm,
And they feel like they can just move through it. Just to them, they move normal, but to us, we see it as not moving. But they feel like they're very fluid in their growth and their motion. And I was freaking out. I was nerding out on that. And I feel this contact with my toe. And I look down and there's water down there. And the water asked me, it said, do you want us on you? And I'm like, yes, I want you on me.
let's go
And so
swimming.
so then the water came out of this little creek, this little stream, and it went up over my body slowly. And as it did, it went through every part of my atomic being
Mm,
and it fixed, it healed, and it mended every damage, self-inflicted or world-inflicted, it didn't matter.
wow.
It healed every bit of damage that I had ever taken on my soul. And when it got done, I truly had an understanding of what we do when we baptize on earth.
Mm,
We're doing something like this because we know this exists in heaven. So we're copying it on earth. Is where I was a different being when it was done. When it came off of me, by the way, it didn't never got me wet. I felt warm, I
mm,
felt cool, I felt electric. It never got me wet. But I could feel like that feeling of water on you, but it didn't
wow.
leave me wet. When it was done, it came off of me and I was not wet anywhere. But I was different. And it was like singing these little songs as it went around and found like little cracks in me.
Wow.
And it would like hum these special musics as it would just go in and just seal that crack with love and heal it. And when it was all done, I had, thank goodness Drake, he knew to give me a minute. When it was done, I just needed a second because I needed to understand how this was all possible. And finally you resign yourself to believe it's not possible. That's how it's possible.
Mm, mm,
Because our human mind is very hard to convince of these things.
yes.
And I didn't want to dampen what was happening by trying to figure out how. I was done trying to, fit my square block in a round peg. Like I just need to embrace what was being given to me.
Mm,
And as I did that, then I noticed a building. And me coming from construction, I was nerding out on that. It
I
was
bet.
an entire structure about 4 stories tall, and it looked probably like a half mile long. And it was one slab of marble. I knew it just by looking at it. The entire thing was one living piece of marble.
Mm,
And I could see individuals over at this building. They were so excited going in and out, some of them carrying these tablets. And as they would go in and out, they would go to a room and they would want to go in and they would make it known, subconsciously that they want to enter this room. And if they could match the love energy of the room, an opening would just form and they would go in. But if
wow.
they couldn't, they would just keep walking. Not disappointed, just understanding they couldn't match that room. Oh, let's go to the other room. And it was just it was eye-opening because I saw lots of cultures there that my religion said weren't going to be in heaven.
Mm,
And it was obvious by their attire. You know, people see themselves kind of the way they saw themselves when they were alive,
Mm.
just in a healthy version. Like most of us, if no matter what age we die, we see ourselves in our 20s, maybe almost 30s, and we see ourselves wearing clothes that we like. And you know, that's one of the symbols when individuals are going around wearing all white, that's representative of the work that they've done on their soul,
Wow.
that they've really released their attachment to their life or lives so that they could fully embrace their current purpose, like Drake was. He was just all in white, but he also had a special robe on, which was different. And I would have had to stay there another week to figure that out, I guess. But, you know, I got to seeing the building, and that's when Drake came around in front of me, and he actually started to block me from looking at the building. And he needed my contact. He needed my direct attention. And when he got my direct attention, he said, Vinny, this is going to be very hard, but it's going to be worth it.
Mm.
And he hugged me. And when he hugged me, I thought the love coming from these plants and these trees and the water was amazing. But when I felt him hug me,
Mm.
I got a hug from God.
Mm.
And again, I don't mean the religious God, I mean the real one. I love religion, but what they teach us about God is very man based and not God based. I met and felt the love our Creator
Mm.
has for us. And when I felt that, I felt like a pulsar, like a boom come off of us, like a boom.
Wow.
And I was led to understand by somehow through my consciousness that when two come together in unconditional love, they're as powerful as four or eight. So it's like we really compound our effect in this world when we can come together
Mm.
in unity, even just two of us. And that's the law of the divine partnership or the divine companion. And and it was such a beautiful thing. And right as I was just in the glory of all this, I heard my brother from Earth, you know, in Earth life, saying a prayer over my body. And when he got done with that prayer, I was forced, truly forced, back into my body. In later contemplation, I did realize that there had to be some level of me out there that approved of going back to my body. But the part of me that I was connected to didn't want to go back. It
Mm.
wanted to stay in heaven. I was dragging my feet, dragging every energy I could. I was still forced back directly into my body. And I woke up, you know, I went in the hospital. They found me dead on January 18th. And I woke up on January 21st at 1:11 in the morning.
Wow.
I woke up, unplugged every equipment that I was plugged into. I pulled out catheters, breathing tubes. I was on full life support and I took everything off me. I was ready to go. I wanted to leave. And of course, the hospital wouldn't release me.
Yeah.
They needed me to take some tests first. So I did take tests for 6 hours. I did every test they could throw at me. Um, and I wanted to go home. So I made them let me go home. So I checked myself out of that hospital at 7:30 in the morning on the 21st of January 2003, 3 days after I had passed.
Wow.
And I was fine. I have had some little health concerns since because of it. Obviously, you let your brain be dead for 3 days, you're going to have some hiccups here and there. I've had to pretty much replace all of my molars because that I had that many seizures that it just
Wow.
shattered all my molars. But they didn't go bad all at once. It was over time. I had to replace them one at a time, and it was quite an experience to go through. But I'll tell you, it every time I run into an obstacle or I run into a blessing, I hear my Drake telling me it's going to be hard, but it's going to be worth it, and it has been. I was blessed later to meet my angel, which is Andrea, my wife, and we knew God was. We sat in a car just after we had become friends. That's it. We were sitting in a car and we watched a double shooting star right in front of us at dusk before it was even dark.
Oh, wow.
And and we both were like, what was that? And we could just feel the universe pushing us together. And we kept reminding each other, this is not a date. This is not a date. Because if we thought it was a date, we would have shut it down.
Mm.
And after not dating like 6 times, we knew we were going to get married. And then we finally started calling them dates after we were engaged.
Funny. Well, I have spoken to her and she is absolutely amazing. She's lovely. Tell her thank you
Yeah.
for setting this up. Yeah, she's delightful.
Yeah, she helps me set up all my interviews and
Yeah.
stuff. And but the a huge blessing of it all is 6 months later, because of Andrea, I was at a family reunion that I wouldn't have been at if she
Mm.
didn't make me go, because she did make me go. She told me I was voluntolding to go. I went to that family reunion and I watched a historical presentation of my ancestry, and I saw this picture of Drake, and it blew my mind because it didn't say his name is Drake; it says his name is Charles. I recognized his last name as the same last name as my grandmother's maiden name.
Mm.
So I went directly from that presentation at the high school in Wyoming, of all places. I went directly to my grandmother's house, which was only a few miles away. And I went busting in the door and I'm like, Grandma, tell me about this Charles Kazare. I need to know everything you know about Charles Kazare. And she goes, Oh, you mean great grandpa Drake? He's kind of
Mm.
famous in our family. And that was it. I went down on my knees weeping. I did,
Oh.
because now, up to this point, I had met with professionals, and professionals had convinced me that I was delusional,
Mm.
I was hallucinating, I was hearing spirit actively ever since it happened. And I was thinking maybe I am crazy. But yet, when I was following what spirit told me to do, I was helping people. I was bringing answers and solutions where they were needed. And this little nugget of finding out who Drake really is, he come to find out he was my great, 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 great grandfather
Wow.
on my grandmother's side. And, there's no possible way I would have known who he was.
Mm.
There's no possible way that I could have ever known who he is or was. And a beautiful blessing to all this is many months later, after we get married, I'm living in Wyoming taking care of my grandmother in her home. Since we were the newlyweds, we were appointed by my dad's family to go and take care of my grandmother. And, we'll go where we're told to go as long as Spirit tells us it's okay. And Spirit did say it was okay, and they wanted us to do it. So we go. And while we're there, we learn more about Drake. We learn that he had prophetic statements made over him that he would be a fundamental part of the transition from the earthly realm to the heavenly realm.
Wow.
And not just for his family, for many, many other folks. So it's like it was being talked about in the 1800s
Wow.
and 1900s. So it's like, the story is more than just my experience. It's
Mm.
like my creator was building my experience long before I ever came along,
Mm.
and then laid me into it right where I was to be in the quantum fabric of positioning where I was supposed to be.
Wow.
But that's my experience.
Incredible. So, something I want after watching you so many times, listening to you so many times, I had wondered if you had spoken to the rookie
The
medic.
medic, I did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you did.
So
Did
I
you share any of? what you
I
saw with
did.
him.
He's very much a guy's guy. Okay.
Yeah.
And this is one thing I've noticed, because I've worked with, thousands and thousands of people over the years, like a lot of people I've worked with. And he's a guy's guy that when things start getting emotional, he cannot communicate about it.
Mhm.
I, I, they wouldn't let me know who he was, number one, but I had this bill from an ambulatory transportation, and it was 1,100. It was $1,100 for, and this was the joke. It was $1,100 for 500 feet.
Wow.
It was like
Sounds about right.
shortest ride in the world, but I was paying 1,100. And then again, this is 2003. That's probably more around like 10-ish grand now.
Yeah.
And so it was a
Wow.
very expensive bill for just going only I mean, maybe a full block between where
Wow.
they picked me up and they dropped me off, maybe 2 blocks, I guess. Um, but the funny thing is, I had this bill, and so I went to the ambulance company and I said, "Hey, I need to speak to the guys who were there. I have questions about the bill." That's how I approached it, so that I could get contact with them. They put me with the supervisor, and the supervisor was saying, "I can't give you their information. You can reach out to our office and send requests that way." And thanks to Spirit, they had a little message for me to deliver to this guy so that he would know I'm serious and I need to talk to these guys. And he understood it. He goes, "Who do you really want to talk to?" And I told him, "I want to talk to the rookie, the new guy." And he goes, "Oh," and he said his name. And right after he said, he's like, "Oh, I shouldn't have done that." And it's funny because as soon as he did, he's like, "Well, I don't care if he's not going to be with us anymore." So I was like, "Oh, that adds a whole nother element to it."
Yeah.
So he had no problem giving me, his name. I then was able to call in and act like I was trying to deliver something to him and see what days he was there. So then I came face to face with him and said, "Hey, can I take you to lunch?
Mm,
I was the guy you saved his life. Please let me do that."
mm.
And the funny thing is, only about a couple miles away from where he was headquartered, his little operations, there was a gas station place that did sandwiches. And he's like, "We can go to Gandolfo's." And I was like, "Okay." So we go to this Gandolfo's place. I get my sandwich and then I go, "And whatever he wants." And he's all, "I'll buy my own sandwich." And I'm like, "Come on, let me do something for you,
You
man."
saved my life, man.
And he wouldn't let me. He wouldn't even let me pay for his sandwich.
Mm,
He just kept saying again, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. I'm doing what I'm supposed to do.
mm,
And, we sat and we ate. He wouldn't talk for a minute. Finally, when he was kind of rounding up on finishing his sandwich, I told him about what I saw, how I saw he was glowing. I was all excited. I was like, "Do you know you were glowing? You were glowing like all around your heart. And then God told you I wasn't dead. And then you were glowing bigger because you didn't listen." And he just sat there and listened, didn't say anything. Okay. I finally got done. I was so excited because here
mm.
he was. He was like a
Yeah.
superhero in my
Yeah.
mind. And I'll never forget it. He goes, "I don't know about all that. I just know you weren't dead."
Mm, mm,
And so what maybe for him it wasn't as fancy as lights and big messages being delivered,
mm,
but either way, what's neat is how God works is sometimes you're witnessing the big lights and fancy messages, other times it's just a knowing. And for
mm.
him it was just a knowing.
Yeah.
And I asked him, I go, "Can I do something for you? Like I really feel you did so much for me."
Mm,
And I'll never forget what his response was. "If it wasn't me, someone else would have."
mm, mm.
And I feel like even him saying that was God saying that.
Yeah. Wow.
That don't try to find your human hero.
Mm,
Find the hero inside the story, and that's God.
mm.
And so to me, I've lived my life since trying to follow my hero,
Yeah.
which is my creator. Yeah.
I love.
Anywhere that I can find my creator, I follow, I work, I study. I'm an advocate. I really strive to keep that close connection to my creator in
Yeah.
everything that I do.
Mm.
Well, what was really interesting is as I was being forced, and I do like to use this word forced, as I was being forced into my body, even if I did choose to go on at some level, I noticed that they couldn't just put me back in my time. They had to find my time and put me there. And that's when I also realized that when I left time, I was leaving this general spot that I was in, going to the space there is no time.
Mm.
And that time is a rule for this life, for this world. But the same way that time is relative to gravity or time is relative to Earth or your perception from Earth, it's a rule that only applies there. So they were showing me that they had to find like the helpers, the guides that were like making this whole thing functional for Drake. They were helping him find my time to put me back into my timeline. And me being the very inquisitive person that I am, I was like, what's over there? And I was like trying to look ahead. I was trying to look backwards. And here's the craziest thing. If I looked back far enough, I could see me. If I looked forward far enough, I could see me.
Mm.
So it's like time is just a loop. It's all just a loop. But I did get a peek. I got a peek at a future. And I don't want to put a timeline on how soon or late that future is, but I got to take a look at the future. And the world doesn't look the way it does now. People act very differently in that future world than they do now. What's crazy to me though is I thought, oh, that's got to be like 100 years away. And then about 10 years ago, I go, wow, looks like
Mm.
it's 25 years away. And now that it's been 20 years since I have my experience, I'm like, that might be 5 years away.
Mm.
It's crazy how fast things are changing.
Yeah.
And they show me that that's a rule of time. It's like the Fibonacci rule, where as you wind a curve, things tighten and go faster.
Yes.
And so as we get to our changes that are coming, they'll change very rapidly.
Mm.
And so you want to check your relationship with your creator regularly
Mm.
because you sure as hell don't want to be checking with the outside world for your guidance. That's the one place where you're going to get untrue guidance is the outside world. You'll get the guidance they want you to get, which will put you in the place they want you to be,
Mm.
but not the place you should be. God will put you in the place where you should be, whether that's following the outside world or not.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Yeah. So I did get to see the future. I got to see, it's not fancy. It's not like, oh, I'm going to go and buy a bunch of stocks or something. It's very opposite of that. We go away from all of our old ways,
Mm.
all of our old systems. Not one of our old systems exists in the future. And I mean not one. Think of a system, it will be extinct.
Mm.
And it can change so fast that that system is gone in very soon. Yeah. So when I see what is going on in the US government right now, it doesn't make me afraid. It doesn't make me upset. I just see it as, oh, look, we're fast forwarding, aren't we?
Yes.
We're just going faster towards what I already saw was
Love
going
it.
to be. And it doesn't put any fear in me at all.
Good.
I get excited, kind of like someone on a roller coaster, as
Yes.
you're hearing the like click, 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 click,
Yes.
click. That's what I hear in my soul.
Yes.
I hear the click, 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 click. We're about to get released.
Yes.
And then it's going to go really fast.
Mm. Mm.
And you want to be in a good place with supportive, loving people. And if you're not, get there. But I did see that, contained in that is three primary waves of light hitting the earth. Each one upgrades the earth. And the first one already started. It started April 8th of last year.
Mm-hmm.
And
Absolutely.
just like light, we were like, wait, I didn't see light. Yeah, our human eyes can't see 85% of light. So of course we're not going to see the first wave. And I'm not saying that as like some kind of it didn't come true. No, I'm saying that because I saw it happening and I'm like, wait, this is like the wave of light. I'm not seeing it with my eyes though. I
Hmm.
knew it was coming, but as it was happening, I could feel, oh, this is the wave of light.
Yes.
So the first wave is already in full action. Now, how long it lasts, I don't think it lasts more than a year. I don't. So I feel around April-ish, we're going to be through that first wave of light, and then we'll start the second wave instantly after.
Mm.
And these waves of light are like heartbeats from heaven. Each one is forcing us to take our shadows out of our freaking closets, stop hiding our lower self, face your shadow, love your shadow into the light.
Mm.
Use your yang to yin into the light. Does that make sense? Like don't run away from your shadow, face it.
Yes.
Stop trying to hide your shadow with technology and addictions and entertainment. Stop.
Yes.
If you can't put your phone down for a day, you're running from something. Stop running because life is freaking beautiful.
Mm.
It is.
It is.
This life is so full of tremendous beauty,
Yeah.
but you'll never see it if you're staring down at your phone.
Absolutely.
So stop. Put some limits on it. Remember what it was like to be a kid and wake up in the summer and think anything can happen today.
Yes. Yes.
Anything can happen. I may see a miracle. I may be given candy. I
Yes.
may see my friend break their leg. Like anything can happen today.
Anything. Yes.
And waking up with this spirit of adventure in your
Mm.
soul, in your
Mm.
gut. Where did that go?
Mm.
It got overstimulated away.
Yes.
That's where it went. Because think about kids of that generation. We had cartoons on Saturday for 3 hours. That's it.
Yeah.
Nowadays,
Yeah.
kids have cartoons 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
They have kids' entertainment. They have adults acting like cartoons 24 hours a day,
Yes.
as much as they want. Look at the human brain. Look at the neurology scans of a
Yes.
child today compared to a child from the 80s.
Mm.
It's scary.
Yeah. You remember that commercial, "This is your brain on drugs"? I
Yeah,
literally think about this is our brain on phones.
on phones.
Like
It is.
really. Yeah.
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 Well, if you were ignorant to the human race, you would come here and think, oh, look at this enslaved race.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
Look at them. They're all enslaved to their
Mm-hmm.
master.
Mm-hmm.
They can't spend 30 minutes on the bathroom without their master.
Yes. So true.
They
Yeah.
can't. They can't spend 2 minutes in the bathroom without their
Mm.
master. How sad is that?
Mm.
But if we are staring at our phones, we're going to miss these waves
Yes.
and we're not going to get the upgrade that we're supposed to get. So, a big recommendation I have for people is learn about breathing.
Mm.
One of the first names for God was breath.
Mm.
And in fact, in Hebrew and Aramaic, breath, God, and spirit at one time were all one word.
Mm.
If we learn to flow our breath, we learn to flow our spirit.
Mm.
We learn to flow God. That's what this life is about. We chose to come here.
We
Don't
chose to
don't
come
waste
here.
it.
Don't waste
Even
it.
if you hate your life, you still chose it. I don't care
Yes.
if you hate it. I hated my life many times in my life. I've hated it even since I had my experience. But then I wake up like, what am I doing hating this? I chose this.
Mm.
Don't
And
waste the greatest gift you have.
that's right.
And that's the present moment.
Mm.
That's why it's called a present.
That's right.
The third wave,
This one's fascinating.
yeah, so the third wave, by the time the third wave happens, there's going to be a bit less of us humans on Earth. Okay. And as it happens, it will be upgrading those who are ready. It will be upgrading our physiology. It will be making it so that we don't need this because
Mhm.
this does everything that this does. We think Google is neat. Try the quantum search.
Yeah.
I've seen people that You know the story Catch Me If You Can
Yes.
about Frank Abagnale?
Uh-huh.
He passed the bar exam because he pretended to be an attorney. And when he was arrested, they kept grilling him. How did you cheat on the bar exam? He's like, I didn't. I plugged into what it was like to be an attorney, and I thought like that, and I took the exam and I passed.
Mm.
That's the quantum field. And isn't it funny that this criminal has to teach us something like this?
Right.
That because he was living so on the edge of society. But what's really neat is if
Mhm.
you want to plug into that field, if you look at the future self you want to be and start being that way now, and you will be plugging into that field, and the field will deliver to you how to get there.
Mm.
But what you know that future self would be doing, start doing those things, all of them. But yeah,
I'm
third
excited.
wave is going to be awesome.
Yeah, yeah. I've heard you mention before how we're just gonna get to a point, and it piggybacks off everything you're saying too, that we're like just no one's gonna be able to lie anymore. We're gonna be able to read right through it all, you
We're in
know?
the process of that right now.
Yeah,
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 you can't lie anymore. If you lie, that lie expires seconds after it's given.
yeah,
And it'll get to a point where it'll be so blatant, everyone's lie detector will be so live that people will start laughing in the face of the liar and we'll just stop lying to each other.
yes, yes.
Even if we, here's the trick that military uses, governments use when they want to lie to the public. They believe the lie so they can lie, right?
Mm.
Even if you believe the lie, it won't work. It won't work.
Exciting.
That's our future.
I'm excited.
Me
I
too.
really am. It's been interesting and wild, and it's all be so beautiful. We're living truly in the most incredible time, and we chose to come here for a reason. We know what we're doing.
Recognize that there's purpose behind obstacles and there's purpose behind the friction of this life. It just makes us better. It does.
Mm, yeah.
Because you don't get forever in this life. You
Mm,
don't. Your soul's eternal, but this life is not eternal, not here.
yeah.
So enjoy it because there will be a time when it's over and you've moved beyond here and you're looking back and you think, man, I wish I would have enjoyed that more.
Yeah.
I wish I would have hugged more. I wish I would have complimented more. You will never think, I wish I would have worked my job more. I wish I would have driven more miles. I wish I would have spent more money. Never. That will
Never.
not happen unless you attach on others
Yes. Right. Yes.
as
Yes.
a selfless act. Yeah. So it's
Absolutely.
like, recognize who you are. You're an eternal soul.
Yes.
Wake up to it. It's a
Yes.
beautiful thing.
Yes.
Yeah.
Amen. Yes. Ah, beautifully said. Vinny, you are awesome. This has been beautiful. Thank you so much for doing this. Please tell your wife thank you.
I
Truly, it's
will.
been
Thank
amazing.
you, Ali. It's been really awesome to chat with you today.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you.